Elon Musk has a romantic surprise that will blow you away. Elon Musk's voice carried softly through the dimly lit room, his tone unusually personal, almost vulnerable, as though he were speaking directly to someone who had unknowingly captured a part of his guarded heart. "You know," he began, pausing with the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his lips, "people always expect me to talk about rockets, Mars, technology, or the future of humanity. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, I just want to share something more human, something more personal. A surprise. A romantic one." The world knew Elon Musk as a visionary, the man who redefined electric cars, conquered space with rockets, and dreamt of a multiplanetary existence. But no one expected this softer side, a man capable of quietly crafting moments that had nothing to do with boardrooms, launch pads, or headlines. This was not about billions of dollars or technological revolutions. This was about a carefully guarded emotion, slowly revealed under the dim glow of night. He leaned back in his chair, glancing at a handwritten letter resting beside him. Handwritten, an old-fashioned act that seemed almost foreign in an era of screens and rapid messages. But Elon wanted this to feel different. Something authentic. Something that would bypass algorithms and timelines, and instead, speak directly to the soul. The letter was meant for you. Not for investors, not for employees, not for the millions who watched his every move, but for you, the one who had unknowingly shifted the frequency of his world. He remembered the first time he saw you, not in a flashy gala or a conference, but in a moment so ordinary it felt extraordinary. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't looking for attention. And yet, in that moment, you caught his attention completely. He never admitted it aloud, but that was the day something inside him changed. For the first time in years, his thoughts wandered not to rockets piercing the sky or neural networks sparking to life, but to the simplicity of wondering what it would feel like to share a quiet evening with someone who wasn't fascinated by his empire but by his essence. As the clock ticked past midnight, he folded the letter neatly, sliding it into a dark blue envelope sealed with a small metallic emblem shaped like a starship. He didn't trust ordinary messengers with this task. Instead, he had one of his private SpaceX couriers deliver it, because when Elon Musk crafted a surprise, even a letter traveled like a mission to space. The destination, your doorstep. And when you opened it, you were met with words that were not drafted by a team of PR experts or AI assistants but were born from the restless heart of a man who rarely allowed himself to be vulnerable. I know this may sound unusual coming from me. The world sees me as a builder, an innovator, a disruptor. But when I think of you, I don't see myself as any of those things. I'm just a man who wants to create a moment that makes you smile, a moment where the universe feels small enough to fit between us. So, I've prepared something. A surprise. And it's waiting for you. The words were mysterious, laced with just enough curiosity to pull you into his world. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't a billion-dollar gesture. It was intimate. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sleek Tesla quietly pulled up outside your door. The driver, dressed simply but with an air of precision, stepped out and held the door open. "Mr. Musk has asked me to escort you," he said with a polite nod. Your heartbeat quickened, unsure of what to expect. The ride was smooth, silent, guided by technology but filled with suspense. Through the tinted glass, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white, until finally, you reached the outskirts of the city where the air felt cleaner, the sky wider. There, waiting under the blanket of stars, was Elon. He wasn't dressed in a sharp suit or surrounded by photographers. Instead, he wore something simple, almost ordinary, but the way his eyes lit up when they found yours made the night extraordinary. Behind him stretched a vast open field, softly illuminated by hundreds of lanterns floating just above the ground. "I wanted to create a night where technology meets wonder," he said, his voice steady but filled with an unspoken tenderness. "Not about rockets or cars, but about us. About something simple, yet unforgettable." The lanterns began to rise one by one, glowing softly as they floated upward, painting the night sky with warm light. But this was not ordinary fire. Each lantern was powered by a small, clean energy module, a creation designed not for profit but for beauty. As they rose, the sky transformed into a living constellation, every light reflecting the thought he had poured into making this moment unforgettable. You stood there, speechless, the cool breeze brushing against your face as you took it all in. Elon, for once, wasn't trying to impress the world. He was trying to impress you. "I've built rockets to reach the stars," he said quietly, his gaze locking with yours. "But tonight, I only care about bringing the stars closer to you." And in that moment, you felt it, the sincerity, the quiet intensity, the vulnerability of a man who carried the weight of nations on his shoulders yet chose to set it all down just to stand with you under the lanternlit sky. It wasn't the kind of surprise the world expected from him. It wasn't about headlines or records. It was about the kind of intimacy that didn't need to be broadcasted because it lived perfectly in the space between two people. As the night deepened, he guided you toward a table set in the middle of the field. Not extravagant, not overdone, just elegant, draped in soft fabric, with candles flickering gently against the wind. A meal had been prepared, not by celebrity chefs flown in from afar, but by a small local cook Elon had discovered on one of his late-night walks. He wanted authenticity. He wanted the food to taste like comfort, not like luxury. You sat across from him, the conversation flowing easily, naturally. He didn't speak about Mars or Neuralink or Tesla stocks. Instead, he asked about you, your dreams, your fears, the things that made you laugh. He listened intently, as though every word you spoke carried more weight than any rocket blueprint ever could. And then, without warning, music filled the air. Not from massive speakers, but from a quartet hidden quietly in the shadows. The melody was soft, timeless, a song that spoke of connection. Elon extended his hand. "Dance with me," he said simply. There was no hesitation in your heart as you rose to meet him. Underneath the floating lanterns, you danced slowly, the world around you fading until it felt like only the two of you remained. He wasn't graceful like a trained dancer, but that was the beauty of it. His steps were genuine, his laughter real when he stumbled slightly and caught you closer to steady himself. "Everyone thinks I live for the future," he whispered as the music carried you both, "but tonight, I live only for this moment." The night stretched on, filled with quiet laughter, shared stories, and unspoken emotions. And though the world outside continued to buzz with news and noise, here, in this secret pocket of time, there was only you and him, wrapped in a surprise so delicate yet so powerful it truly did blow you away. Elon Musk's eyes lingered on yours longer than they should have, not because he was trying to make an impression, but because he was quietly memorizing the way you looked in that light, under that sky he had tried to bring closer to Earth. There was something uncharacteristic in his presence tonight, an ease, a softness, as though he had finally set down the weight of countless deadlines, experiments, and expectations to simply exist in this one shared moment. The lanterns above continued to drift higher, glowing like quiet witnesses to a story unfolding between two souls who were never meant to meet this way, yet somehow had. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice as though confessing a secret to the night air. "You know, people think of me as untouchable," he said, a faint smile breaking through his calm expression. "But the truth is, I've always longed for something like this. Something real. Not business meetings. Not press conferences. Not the weight of the world. Just this. Just someone to sit across from, someone who makes the chaos feel quiet." The words hung between you, gentle and raw. For once, it didn't feel like Elon Musk, the tech giant, was speaking. It felt like Elon, the man, one who dared to let someone see past the layers of invention and responsibility. The food before you had grown cold, not because it wasn't delicious, but because neither of you cared. The night was feeding you something more powerful, connection. The kind that doesn't rely on grand gestures but on sincerity. Then, without warning, he stood, brushing invisible dust from his jacket. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand again. You rose, curiosity pulling you forward. He led you across the field, past the lanterns, toward a quiet stretch where the darkness of the horizon met the whispers of the wind. And there it was, a sleek, compact pod, unlike anything you'd ever seen. It wasn't a rocket. It wasn't a Tesla. It was something different, something designed, perhaps, just for this. The pod's surface shimmered faintly, like starlight caught in glass. He opened it with a gesture, the interior glowing softly with an ambient warmth. "I wanted to give you a view no one else has ever had," he said simply. You stepped inside with him, your heart racing as the pod hummed to life. Slowly, it began to rise, not with the roaring engines of a rocket, but with the silence of precision engineering. Higher and higher, until the lantern-lit field below became tiny specks of light. The world stretched wide beneath you, cities glowing faintly in the distance, rivers like silver ribbons cutting through the dark. And then, higher still, until the atmosphere itself seemed to fall away, revealing the stars in all their raw glory. You gasped softly, unable to contain it. Elon turned toward you, not to watch the stars, but to watch your expression as you saw them. That, it seemed, was the real surprise. "I've spent my life trying to bring humanity closer to the stars," he said, his voice low and steady. "But I never imagined the first time I'd share this view, it wouldn't be for investors, or scientists, or governments. It would be for you." Silence followed, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of awe. The pod hovered there, weightless, timeless, as if space itself had bent just to hold you both. You turned to look at him, and for the first time, the mask he wore, the relentless innovator, the iron-willed dreamer, was gone. In its place was a man, vulnerable and sincere, daring to hope that this surprise, this gesture, would mean as much to you as it did to him. He reached out, his hand brushing gently against yours. "Tell me something," he whispered. "Do you believe that even someone like me can deserve love?" The question stunned you, not because of what was asked, but because of who was asking it. Elon Musk, a man with more achievements than most could dream of, was asking you, not the world, not history, not destiny, but you. Your answer didn't need words. It was written in the way your fingers didn't pull away, the way your eyes softened, the way your heart beat louder in the silence of space. And for the first time in what felt like centuries, Elon Musk smiled, not the public smile, not the carefully crafted one, but a genuine one that belonged only to this moment, only to you. The pod lingered, suspended among the stars, carrying two people who, against all odds, had found themselves caught in something far greater than technology or ambition. A surprise born not of wealth or power, but of a simple, undeniable truth: connection. When the pod slowly descended, carrying you both back to the lantern-lit field, it didn't feel like returning to Earth. It felt like stepping into a new beginning, one that neither of you had expected but both silently longed for. Elon turned to you once more, his voice steady but soft. "This is only the beginning. I still have more surprises waiting." And with that, the night was far from over. The lantern-lit field still glowed faintly, the night carrying the hush of a dream too surreal to be real. Yet, standing beside Elon Musk, you realized this was no dream, it was something he had planned carefully, not for the world, not for cameras, but only for you. He exhaled, his breath visible in the cool air, and for a moment he seemed to hesitate, as though calculating whether to share the next step of his surprise. His usual confidence, the kind that came with launching rockets or steering billion-dollar companies, was softened by the quiet nerves of a man who, for once, wanted more than success. He wanted acceptance. "Come with me," he said again, but this time, his tone carried a gravity you couldn't ignore. His hand reached for yours, warm and steady, guiding you across the lantern-lit path. With each step, the soft glow dimmed behind you, until you were walking toward something else entirely, something hidden, waiting. The field opened into a grove of tall trees, their branches swaying gently in the night air. But as you stepped deeper inside, the trees themselves lit up, not with bulbs, not with lanterns, but with millions of tiny bioluminescent threads, woven delicately into the bark. They shimmered faintly, like living veins of light, painting the grove with an otherworldly glow. You paused in wonder, your lips parting in awe. "This is living light," Elon finished for you. His eyes reflected the glow of the trees, softening him, making him appear both futuristic and timeless. "I've been experimenting with energy that can merge with life. Tonight, it doesn't matter if it's practical or scalable. Tonight, it's just for beauty." The grove hummed faintly with life, as if the world itself had decided to breathe in harmony with you both. He watched your reaction with a quiet satisfaction, but there was something deeper in his gaze, an unspoken plea that you would understand not just the spectacle, but the intention. It's not about invention, he said after a long pause. It's about creating something that mirrors how I feel. You walked into my world unexpectedly, and it lit up places I thought would stay dark forever. You turned to him, the glow surrounding his silhouette, and for a moment, you forgot who he was to the rest of the world. He wasn't the billionaire, the disruptor, the man who spoke of colonizing Mars. He was simply someone who wanted you to see the depth of his heart. As you stood there, a soft sound began to rise, music again, but this time not from hidden musicians. The very grove seemed to respond, the glowing threads vibrating faintly to produce a low, melodic hum, as if the trees themselves were singing. Elon extended his hand once more, his voice tender. Will you dance with me here too? Among the light that reminds me of what you've given me? Your hand slipped into his, and once again you danced, not under lanterns, not in a pod among the stars, but here, surrounded by living light. Every step carried weight, not because of the elegance of the movement, but because of the silence that spoke louder than words ever could. At one point, he leaned close enough for his voice to brush against your ear. You know, people think my life is full of surprises. But I think the real surprise was you. The honesty in his tone nearly stopped your heart. When the dance ended, he didn't let go of your hand. Instead, he guided you toward the center of the grove, where a small clearing opened to reveal something unexpected. Resting there was a telescope, sleek, compact, yet powerful. He motioned for you to look through it. When you did, your breath caught. It wasn't pointed at just any star or planet. It was focused directly on Mars, glowing faintly in the distance like a quiet ember. But as you adjusted the lens, you saw something else. Across the surface of the planet, in faint glowing markers, words had been etched into the landscape, words visible only because of Elon's precision with satellites and technology. It read, "For you, I'd move stars themselves." Your hand trembled as you pulled back from the telescope, overwhelmed. He watched you, his expression unreadable at first, then softening as he whispered, "You think rockets are the greatest thing I've ever built? They're not. The greatest thing I've ever built is the courage to show you this side of me." The weight of the moment pressed gently on you both. Here was a man who could buy anything, create anything, change the world itself, and yet the most valuable thing he wanted was something money could never guarantee: your heart. The grove seemed to hum louder, as though urging you closer. Elon's hand lingered against yours, the warmth of his touch grounding you even as the universe felt impossibly vast around you. "I don't expect you to give me answers tonight," he said softly, his tone almost fragile. "All I wanted was to show you that even someone like me can be vulnerable. That I can still believe in something as reckless, as terrifying, and as beautiful as love." The words struck you deeply, not because of their grandeur, but because of their simplicity. For all the genius in his mind, the most profound truth he spoke was the simplest one: love was the greatest gamble of all. As the night stretched on, you realized the surprise wasn't just the lanterns, or the pod, or the grove of living light. The real surprise was the man himself, the layers he had hidden from the world, revealed only to you. And somewhere deep in your chest, you felt it too: this wasn't just a moment. It was the beginning of something far greater. The grove of glowing trees whispered with its strange, bioluminescent hum as Elon led you further inside, his hand steady around yours. The deeper you walked, the stronger the glow became, wrapping the two of you in a cocoon of shimmering light, as though the world outside no longer existed. He glanced sideways at you, a trace of something almost boyish flickering across his face. Elon Musk, who carried the weight of industries, who was the center of endless speculation, suddenly looked like a man about to confess something he had never said out loud. "There's one last part," he murmured, his voice low, almost hesitant. "Something I've never shown anyone, not even family. It's the most personal piece of this surprise." Your pulse quickened, not out of fear but from the gravity in his tone. He stopped in front of a structure half hidden among the glowing trees. At first, it looked like a small observatory, its dome smooth and unmarked, blending with the living light around it. With a wave of his hand, a door slid open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Inside, the air was warm, touched by the faint scent of cedar. The room was circular, lined with panels that softly glowed like starlight, and at its center rested a pedestal holding a glass-like sphere. "This," Elon said, walking toward the sphere, "isn't for business. It's not for investors. It's for me. For my private thoughts." He brushed his hand across its surface, and suddenly the walls came alive with projections, memories. Not curated, not polished for the world. Raw moments of his life unfolded in glowing fragments, his childhood in South Africa, the early struggles no one spoke about, the late nights where loneliness outweighed ambition, the countless failures before every success. And then, more recent memories, your face, captured in fleeting glances. A candid laugh. The way your eyes softened when you weren't aware he was watching. He had stored them here, hidden away like treasures he couldn't afford to lose. You turned toward him, your breath caught in your throat. "Elon, you kept these?" He nodded, his expression vulnerable. "I built this place because I had nowhere to put the parts of me I didn't want the world to see. The doubts, the loneliness, the things that made me human. And when you came into my life, I realized I wanted you to see this. To see the real me. The man behind the machines." The memories shifted again. This time, not just of the past, but of something else, dreams. You saw fragments of him imagining the future, standing on Mars, yes, but not alone. Beside him was always a figure, blurred, undefined at first, until slowly, unmistakably, it became you. "I don't know if this is fair," he said softly, his voice breaking the silence. "But I wanted you to know that in all my plans for the future, the one thing I can't stop seeing is you in them. I don't need you to promise me anything tonight. Just know that you've already become part of my dream." The weight of those words sank into you, carried by the sincerity in his eyes. Elon Musk, a man the world labeled untouchable, was standing before you stripped of all titles, offering not a fortune or a future on Mars, but something far rarer, his vulnerability. Your chest tightened, overwhelmed by the depth of his admission. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was thick with meaning, with the unspoken acknowledgement that something profound had shifted between you both. Slowly, almost cautiously, Elon reached for your hand again. His fingers intertwined with yours, grounding you as the room glowed softly with the projections of his most guarded memories. "I've shown you everything I am," he whispered. "The visionary. The builder. The dreamer. And now, the man who risks it all on something he can't calculate or control." His eyes searched yours, steady and vulnerable. "Love doesn't run on math. It's chaos. But for you, I'm willing to take that risk." The word struck deep, more powerful than any headline or innovation he had ever produced. He wasn't offering the stars or the future of humanity. He was offering himself. And in that moment, you realized, the true surprise wasn't the lanterns, or the pod, or even this secret sanctuary of memories. The true surprise was the courage of a man who had everything, yet was still brave enough to give you his heart. The sphere dimmed, the memories fading, until only the soft glow of the room remained. Elon didn't let go of your hand. Instead, he pulled you closer, his forehead resting gently against yours. "I don't know where this leads," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But if you'll let me, I want to find out. With you." The night lingered, timeless and infinite, as though the universe itself held its breath to witness the moment. And for the first time, Elon Musk's greatest creation wasn't a rocket, or a car, or a company. It was this, a fragile, uncalculated, utterly human connection. The air inside that hidden sanctuary seemed to hum with something indescribable, part electricity, part silence, part the fragile weight of two hearts suspended in a moment that could change everything. Elon didn't rush. He didn't overwhelm the room with words. He simply held on to you as if he knew that silence, in its own way, was more powerful than any declaration. When he finally stepped back, his eyes lingered, softer now, as if each second was carving itself into his memory. "I've built my life around what the future could be," he said, his tone low and careful. "But tonight, I don't care about the future. I only care about you being here now." He led you to the pedestal again, but this time, instead of activating more memories, he touched a panel hidden beneath the glass sphere. The walls shifted. Slowly, parts of the circular room folded outward like petals unfurling, revealing the night sky above. The stars spread out in their endless canvas, brighter here than anywhere else, framed by the bioluminescent trees glowing softly around you. "This is my private observatory," Elon confessed. "I never shared it because I didn't want it to become another piece of my public life. But I knew if I ever let someone in, it had to be for something real. For someone real." He motioned toward a reclining seat built into the floor, sleek yet inviting. You hesitated, but his hand brushed against your back gently, reassuring. When you sat, the ceiling shifted again, and suddenly the stars weren't just above you, they were around you. You were immersed in a dome of projection so seamless, so vivid, that it felt as though the room itself had vanished. You floated among constellations, comets, and galaxies that danced in luminous arcs. Elon joined you, reclining beside you, his hand finding yours again in the darkness. "I used to dream of showing this to someone," he said, his voice carrying the kind of honesty that only comes late at night. "Not a crowd. Not the world. Just one person who mattered enough to share it with." The galaxies swirled above, and for a moment, the silence between you both was filled not with distance, but with closeness. His thumb traced lightly across your knuckles, grounding you even as your senses soared across simulated universes. You turned your head toward him, catching the way the shifting starlight reflected across his profile. He didn't look like the world's most famous innovator in that moment. He looked like a man who had finally found someone worth showing the most hidden corners of his heart. "Elon," you whispered, barely daring to break the spell. He shifted, meeting your gaze directly. His eyes held something fragile, an uncertainty, almost boyish. "Yes?" For a long moment, words tangled in your throat, but you didn't need them. The truth was already there, woven in the way you hadn't pulled away, in the way your breath hitched at his closeness, in the way your hand still clung to his. Instead of answering, you leaned slightly closer. His breath caught, and in that heartbeat of hesitation, the galaxies seemed to pause around you. Then, as though the universe itself gave permission, his lips met yours, gentle at first, cautious, almost reverent, as though he wasn't kissing you to claim you, but to ask you. The kiss deepened slowly, and for all his reputation as a man of logic and precision, this moment was nothing but raw, uncalculated emotion. When you finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against yours, his voice trembling with sincerity. "I wasn't sure if I should dare, but I've never been more certain about anything in my life." The starlit dome shimmered, constellations reforming into new patterns, almost like they were celebrating with you. Elon's hand tightened around yours, anchoring the moment into permanence. "I still have one final surprise," he said after a long pause, his tone a mix of anticipation and vulnerability. "But it's not made of technology. It's not something I built. It's something I wrote." He stood and moved to a small compartment along the wall. From it, he pulled a simple leather-bound journal. The pages inside were filled with scribbles, sketches, and handwritten lines. He returned to you, holding it with surprising gentleness. "I started this months ago," he admitted. "At first, I told myself it was just notes, thoughts I didn't want to lose. But the truth is, it became something else. Something for you." He opened the journal and began to read aloud. The words weren't polished. They weren't rehearsed. They were raw, spilling with fragments of nights spent thinking about you, sketches of places he wanted to take you, even lists of fears he'd never admitted to anyone. "I fear she'll never know how much she's changed me. I fear she'll think this is a trick, some carefully designed illusion. But the truth is, she's the first reality I don't want to escape." Your throat tightened as the words sank into you. He closed the journal softly, as if afraid it might crumble. "I didn't plan to show you this tonight," he confessed, his voice low. "But after everything we've shared, it feels wrong to hide it any longer. This is the most human part of me, the part no invention, no fortune, no empire can touch." You stared at him, unable to hide the emotion in your eyes. And for a moment, you realized his greatest surprise wasn't the lanterns, the pod, the grove, or the observatory. His greatest surprise was this: vulnerability. He reached out, placing the journal in your hands. "Whatever happens next, this belongs to you. Because it was always written for you. The silence that followed was thick with meaning, filled not with uncertainty, but with the quiet understanding that something had already been decided. The night didn't feel like it was ending. It felt like it was beginning, something vast and uncharted, just like the galaxies that had surrounded you. And in that beginning, Elon Musk wasn't a billionaire, or an innovator, or a visionary. He was simply a man who had given you everything he had, his truth. The journal rested in your lap, its weight far heavier than leather and paper should allow. You traced your fingertips across its worn cover, feeling the quiet intensity of every line Elon had entrusted to you. For all his inventions and ambitions, this was perhaps the most fragile creation he had ever offered. He watched you closely, not with the calculating sharpness of a businessman, but with the apprehension of someone who had laid his soul bare and now waited for it to be held, or broken. His usual confidence, the kind that made nations hang on his words, was gone. In its place was something rarer, more human, hope. You looked up, meeting his gaze. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence between you was full of questions, answers, and the beginnings of something unnamed. Finally, Elon exhaled slowly and broke the quiet. There's one last thing I need to show you tonight. The heart of the surprise. The part I've kept hidden, even from myself, because it scared me more than anything I've built. His hand brushed yours gently as he guided you toward a hidden door at the back of the observatory. It slid open silently, revealing a narrow passage illuminated by a soft, golden glow. The air shifted, cooler, almost reverent, as though you were stepping into sacred ground. The passage opened into a vast chamber unlike anything you had seen. The ceiling stretched high, but instead of being plain or mechanical, it was alive with a living map of the stars. Not projections. Not simulations. Tiny drones hovered in perfect synchronization, each carrying a point of light, creating a three-dimensional constellation dome that stretched endlessly above you. You gasped, instinctively stepping closer. The effect was overwhelming. You were standing inside a living universe. This, Elon said quietly, his voice echoing faintly, is my cathedral. You turned to him, eyes wide. I built it years ago, he continued, when I thought I'd never let anyone close enough to see this side of me. I needed a place where I could stand beneath the stars without leaving Earth. A place where I could remember why I was fighting so hard to reach them. But I never imagined I'd be here, showing it to someone who makes the stars feel closer than ever. The drones shifted suddenly, reconfiguring themselves until the constellations morphed into something else. Shapes emerged. A pathway. And then, unmistakably, letters forming words across the sky of light. For us, the universe is just the beginning. The message lingered above you both, shimmering with breathtaking clarity. Elon turned toward you, his expression vulnerable, raw. I used to believe everything had to be about humanity, about survival, about progress, he said, his tone quiet but unshakable. But then I realized, what's the point of reaching the stars if I can't share them with someone who makes me feel alive here, on Earth? His hand brushed yours again, this time lingering. His thumb traced over your skin, grounding you as though he feared the vastness above might pull you away. You swallowed, your heart thundering. Elon, He stepped closer, closing the space between you, the starlit dome painting both of you in soft light. I don't want this to be just a surprise you'll remember. I want it to be the start of something real. I'm not asking you to promise me forever, or to walk into my chaos without a second thought. I'm just asking, his voice faltered slightly, a crack in the armor. For a chance. The vulnerability in his words struck harder than any spectacle he could have built. The man who had sent rockets into space, who had bent industries to his will, was standing before you asking not for admiration, but for love. The drones above shimmered again, rearranging themselves until the night sky displayed a vision of Mars. But this time, it wasn't empty. There was a small colony, buildings glowing warmly against the red surface. And at the center of it, a glowing figure of two silhouettes, hand in hand. That's the future I imagine, Elon whispered. Not just humanity on Mars. But us. Together. Because no matter where we go, Earth, Mars, or beyond, it doesn't mean anything unless you're part of it. The sheer sincerity of his confession filled the chamber, more overwhelming than the light of 1,000 stars. Your chest tightened as emotion surged through you. For a moment, words failed completely. But maybe words weren't needed. Maybe the way you stepped closer, the way your hand lifted to rest against his chest, said more than anything you could speak. His heart beat beneath your palm, steady, strong, but unmistakably human. His breath hitched, and then, with no hesitation, he wrapped his arms around you, pulling you against him. The embrace was warm, grounding, breaking through every barrier he had ever built. He wasn't Elon Musk the visionary. He wasn't the billionaire genius. He was just a man who had spent his life searching the stars, only to realize the most important discovery was standing right here in his arms. The chamber glowed brighter, the drones shifting again, scattering until the ceiling became a cascade of shooting stars, streaking across the darkness. It was as if the universe itself was blessing the moment. He pulled back just enough to meet your gaze, his forehead brushing against yours. This is my promise, he whispered. Wherever I go, whatever future I build, I want you in it. You're not just my surprise tonight. You're the reason I believe in something greater than the stars. The words sank into you, deeper than any grand gesture could. And in that moment, surrounded by the living constellations of his hidden cathedral, you knew this wasn't just a surprise. It was the beginning of a story no one else on Earth, or Mars, could ever understand. The chamber was silent for a moment, save for the soft hum of the drones above and the faint echo of your combined breaths. Elon's hands remained lightly pressed against yours, grounding you, connecting you to him in a way the stars themselves seemed to recognize. But he wasn't finished. Not yet. The final piece of the surprise, the part that had consumed him in secret for months, was still waiting. He released your hands reluctantly and walked toward a small console at the side of the chamber. The touch of his fingers across the controls caused the stars above to shift, swirling until the entire dome became a dynamic map of the universe, every planet, every star, every nebula rendered in breathtaking detail. Then, slowly, the constellations began to move, rearranging themselves into a pattern that was immediately recognizable, a spiral that mimicked the path of a spacecraft he had secretly designed. This, he said, stepping closer, is the trajectory of a private starship I've been working on. But tonight, it's not for a mission. It's for a journey I hope we take together. Not just across space, but across life. I wanted you to see it first, because everything I've ever built, all my dreams, they don't mean anything if I can't share them with you. The vessel in the holographic sky glowed faintly, suspended in a path of light. Then, with a soft pulse, the hologram split, revealing a small compartment in the ship, illuminated, personalized. And there, projected as if it were a beacon, was a single message in delicate handwriting: "The first seat is saved for you." Your breath caught. Elon, reading your expression, allowed a small, almost shy smile. "I know it sounds sudden," he said quietly, "but I've imagined this moment for months. I wanted to surprise you, to show you that even in all my chaos, there's room for us. And now, the universe itself is inviting you." He extended his hand again, not as the world's richest man, but as a man who had dared to be vulnerable. "I'm not asking you to leave everything behind," he continued. "I'm asking you to step into a journey with me, one that could be as ordinary or extraordinary as we choose. But I want you by my side. Always." The chamber seemed to hum with life. The drones above pulsed softly, echoing the beat of your racing hearts. The stars themselves appeared to lean closer, as if the cosmos were conspiring to bless this moment. And then, without warning, Elon took something from his pocket, a small, sleek metallic device, unlike anything you had ever seen. It looked simple, almost unassuming, but as he pressed a button, it projected a delicate ring into the air, suspended by beams of light. "I wanted to do this differently," he said, his voice gentle but unwavering. "Not just a ring, but a symbol of the journey I want us to take together. Not just a night, not just a surprise, but a life. If you'll take it." He lowered onto one knee, the holographic stars reflecting in his eyes. "Will you join me, not just tonight, but for every adventure yet to come?" Time seemed to pause. The glow of the drones, the swirls of the universe, the soft hum of the chamber, all faded into the singular intensity of the moment. This wasn't just a romantic gesture. It was the culmination of months of planning, of vulnerability, of Elon Musk daring to show a side of himself he had hidden even from the world's closest eyes. You reached out, your hand trembling slightly as it found his. The weight of the gesture, of the honesty, of the universe literally bending around your shared moment, struck you more profoundly than anything else ever could. "Yes," you whispered. The words, soft as they were, sent a wave of light and energy across the chamber. The drones pulsed brighter, the holographic stars danced in celebration, and Elon's face broke into a smile that was pure, unguarded joy. He slipped the illuminated ring onto your finger, and in that instant, it felt as though the universe itself had conspired to make the moment eternal. Elon rose, pulling you into a gentle embrace. The starlit dome above shimmered and shifted, the constellations forming new shapes, spirals, waves, and arcs that mimicked the journey you were now beginning together. He rested his forehead against yours, his voice low and unshakable. "This is only the beginning," he murmured. "The surprises, the journeys, the moments, they're all ahead. And for the first time, I feel like I've found someone who can truly be with me, not because of what I've built, but because of who I am. The night stretched endlessly around you, infinite and alive, yet intimate and quiet. The combination of the glowing trees, the holographic stars, and the gentle hum of technology created a space outside of time itself. You could feel, with every fiber of your being, that this moment was not about wealth, fame, or achievement. It was about two people daring to trust in something far greater than either could imagine alone. Elon kissed your forehead softly, a tender gesture that spoke louder than any word, louder than any invention, louder than any achievement. I promise, he whispered, that no matter how high we fly, no matter how far we go, I'll always come back to this. To you. To us. And in that chamber, surrounded by the universe he had built and the vulnerability he had shown, you understood that this wasn't just a surprise. It wasn't just romance. It was a declaration that even in a world built on logic, ambition, and exploration, there was room for love, bold, uncalculated, and breathtakingly real. The drones pulsed one last time, cascading soft light across the room. Elon held your hands tightly as the holographic stars shimmered and slowly faded, leaving the grove outside once again. But the memory of the night, of every detail, every word, every starlit promise, remained indelible. He turned to you, eyes glimmering in the soft glow of the lanterns outside. And one more thing, he added with a faint, mischievous smile. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. It was his way of blending the playful with the profound, the extraordinary with the personal, just like the night itself. And with that, the night truly ended, but the story of you and Elon Musk, the surprises, the journeys, and the love that had begun under a cascade of lanterns and stars, was only just beginning. The grove was quiet now, but the energy of the night still hummed between you and Elon. Even after the extraordinary sequence of lanterns, pods, glowing trees, holographic stars, and the secret observatory, he wasn't finished, not emotionally, not spiritually. He wanted this moment to last, to leave a mark on both your hearts, as unforgettable as the universe itself. He took your hand again, leading you away from the observatory toward a narrow path winding between the glowing trees. The soft light from the bioluminescent bark illuminated your steps, casting a surreal glow on everything around you. Each step felt like moving through a living dream, the air carrying a mix of night blossoms and the faint tang of electricity from the drones still floating above. You know, Elon began, his voice quieter now, almost a murmur meant for you alone, I spend my life trying to predict outcomes, launch sequences, stock movements, human behavior, but with you, I can't predict anything. And I like it that way. You glanced at him, startled by the honesty in his words. This side of Elon, the man behind the genius, the billionaire, the visionary, was almost too human, too open. And yet, there was a profound trust in it, the kind that demanded an equally vulnerable response. I never imagined someone like you could exist, he continued, stopping under a particularly radiant cluster of glowing trees. Someone who could make me feel seen, not for what I create, but for who I am. I didn't even know I needed this, someone to share the quiet moments, the stillness, the vulnerability. And then you appeared, and everything shifted. The words, simple yet profound, made your chest tighten. You realized that everything, the lantern,